Okay, 47% of men carry self-defense tools when working in real estate, and 58% of women carry self-defense tools when working in real estate. Self-defense tools can be anything from a knife to a taser to a body alarm and all the things in between. Welcome to the Safe Realty podcast with me, Shannon Cutler. I am on a mission to educate my listeners so they don't become the next true crime news headline. As a former police officer with 18 years of investigative experience and now a real estate agent, I guide realtors on how to handle their own security in vulnerable situations and develop best safe business practices. If you enjoy learning new tools to improve your safety, I'm going to ask you to follow this podcast and leave a review. Share it with your friends. Even better, play this at your next office meeting. So many people, many ears get it all at once. I know I promised you a handsome and a handy guest on this episode this week, and I have had some crazy scheduling conflicts with this person, and so now we are going to have him come back in 2 weeks, and it will be really fun. I have also switched this podcast to a bi-weekly podcast just because I have to. And so every 2 weeks, you'll get a new fresh episode, and we'll keep it rolling. Looking forward to that. Today we're talking about men versus women in self-defense, in safety, in particular real estate safety, because that's what this is about. Okay, so at the beginning I said 47% of men and 58% of women carry self-defense tools. That's not a huge difference, if I'm being honest. 11% difference between the two. You'd think that perhaps if men felt safe in their role, they wouldn't carry it at all, or the number would be a lot lower. These statistics are taken from a United States real estate safety survey, an annual survey, the National Association of Realtors. It's quite a significant survey that's done every year, and there's tons of really good resources and tons of good information that comes out of it. But it tells me that there is still a reason for men to feel that they need to maybe protect themselves. 48% of all reportees on the survey show vacant properties on a regular basis with areas of poor cell coverage. So what we're doing on this episode is talking men versus women, just getting into that a little bit as we think, if I'm a woman and a man showing the same vacant property with poor cell service, am I, as a female, more likely to feel insecure, more likely to become a victim? On the real estate courses I teach, say out of all the attendees, typically I see 20 to 30% of male attendees, and they're actually usually quite engaged. They want to learn for themselves, but more, they usually say that they're there to learn for their daughter, for their partner, for their wife, for their brokerage. They can take that information back to them. Not always are they there to learn for themselves, which is, but it's interesting that they're there. And they usually ask a ton of good questions, which I find very interesting. I'll tell you a little story. So a couple of years ago, I was showing a foreclosure property in my area. I was taking my client, who's like a 40-some-year-old male, fairly large. His relative, also a beefy, stocky guy, and then the elderly father of my client, who was a larger man, but definitely was using cane and wasn't as able. We go to this foreclosure property, supposed to be vacant. I knock on the door, and out comes the person who used to own the property, is squatting in there, and he comes out. He is obliterated, stoned to the nuts. He comes out screaming and yelling, ready to fight. We are in a covered porch front entrance area, and there's only to jump over the edge, like over the railing, to get away or to get down the stairs. And this guy comes out fast and barreling out, screaming, yelling, spit flying from his mouth. My client, his dad, and the friend all hide behind me. They outweighed me by 500 pounds between the three of them. But I found it interesting because none of them were, the size. They weren't small people, and they seemed to have very good confidence, blue collar workers. I felt, if anything is going on, these people would jump out and get into fist fight if need be. But it was very alarming, this man running out of the house at us. And it was not something that these three people, and they were men, but they could have been easily just as easily been women, they don't deal with on a regular basis. So most people don't encounter that kind of conflict or that kind of potential threat on a regular basis. So they jumped out, went behind me. They weren't hiding behind me, but they were standing behind me. And I managed to talk this fellow down as we all slowly made our way off the deck, got some space from the fellow that was on there. And at the end of the day, once I calmed him down, he sat outside, smoked some weed while I kept an eye on him so that people could go inside and have a little view before we left, because they were considering an offer. But the whole point of this story is not that I save the world. It's the point is that it doesn't matter who is with you, whether it's men or women, that this man coming out at them would have had the same result, whether it was a male or female. He was mad. There was three men with me and he still reacted in this way. So I'm trying to say that this kind of information, this safety information, can have value for everybody. I know the listenership is probably primarily female, and that's totally awesome. And any male that is listening to my podcast or getting this information, I encourage you to share it with everybody as well. Most of the people I've talked to, even whether it's women or men, or even trans people, I find that their demographic will often feel a little bit more risk for safety, just given that they feel that they could be a target based on, the perception of the society they live in. But in particular, a lot of male agents that I talk to say that they don't really think about their safety, and they don't necessarily think about their safety leaving their office at night, walking to their car, or driving a client around in their car. So it's something that women, and this is not a men versus women in like an angry way. This is just like comparing and talking about it just to see, the differences in this aspect. But I feel that women that I talk to and that I've encountered over the years while policing and while doing real estate, just in general, we do have to think about this safety aspect a little bit more. I mean, when I go on the trails to go walking or hiking, I have to watch out for bears and cougars. It doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, what you smell like. A bear and a cougar will eat you just as quickly as the next guy. But if I'm out jogging in the forest, am I potentially thinking that somebody could jump out and scare me or grab me? Yeah, of course those thoughts are in place. And there was this one area in a town that I used to work in, and men each year would hide in the forest. A couple men, not men in general, but these specific lovely folks would jump out at women on the trails when they walked and they hiked, and they would flash their privates to them, genitals to them. Rarely did we ever get a report from a male that this happened. And why not? Because the people that these guys were flashing were individuals that would likely not be able to chase them down, not be able to beat them up, not look like they would pummel them. So they chose the people that they were going to flash. And that is something that we talk about on this podcast, protecting ourselves by becoming less of a target, by doing all the things that we're learning, whether we're male or female, it doesn't matter. But it is interesting on how some of these things will, there will be a gender boundary on some of them, and other situations there won't be. Like the foreclosure property, 3 giant men behind me, it wouldn't have mattered. Men typically report less crime being committed against them. Now, we're not going to get too deep into the weeds on this. Is it because they potentially feel embarrassed? I mean, say, like at an open house, there was something that happened. Maybe a male agent wouldn't report it because they were embarrassed, or maybe they don't feel like they were a victim, or they don't think it's that big of a deal for whatever reason. It's their perception, so they don't report it. They don't want to make a big deal of it. Maybe they feel like they should have been able to stop it and didn't, and they're like, ugh, just, whereas some of the women that I've encountered in real estate that have been a victim of a crime, and it could be a theft or something more serious, they often do report because of the alarming nature of it. But it's interesting, when I was reading the crime statistics, men are actually statistically more likely to be the victim of a violent crime like a homicide or a serious assault or robbery, while women are more likely to be victims of intimate partner crime and violence. And that's not really a huge surprise. Very few women in the prison populations. Typically, a lot of the crime is committed by a very small percentage of the population, and it is typically committed more by males on males. Now, when we're talking about real estate agents, we're in a bit different of a situation because we are often isolated. And if there is, 3 open houses on one road, 2 are open houses held by male agents, the third is a female agent, a bad guy who's going to go steal the drugs from the cupboard or the bathroom at this place is probably going to pick the female, because likely that person feels that that woman agent is less likely to be able to hurt them or fend them off. So it is an interesting thing, and we do see it every day. I often do have this discussion in my real estate safety courses about this topic. On the last one I taught last week at our board office, there weren't any men in the audience. Usually there are a few, 3 typically for every 10 attendees. So we didn't have the same perspective this time, but I usually really like to tap into that just to find out a bit different of a context of what we're talking about. One of the things that did come up on my recent course from these female agents is that, if somebody is in there and they're stealing something, what am I supposed to do about it? What am I going to do about it? Well, I'll tell you right now, as a realtor, you're not going to do anything about it. You're going to, if you feel comfortable asking them to stop or to leave, you're going to do that. If not, you're going to leave and you're going to call the police. You're going to get help, the help you need. Now, I do know some male agents that may make attempts to stop a crime in progress, and that is a personal choice. But again, as a realtor, we are best to let the professionals handle an actual crime, whether it's the police, fire, ambulance, whatever that is, or getting numbers, safety in numbers, grabbing a neighbor or another agent or somebody nearby to help you. While you're listening, if you think of somebody that this episode will benefit, please share this. The whole point of creating this podcast is to share a little bit of safety knowledge with individuals out there, primarily real estate agents, because we do bring it all back to real estate, but bringing it back to anybody that you feel would benefit from a little bit of safety information. Now, as a female agent, I know that many of the male agents I've spoken to and surveys I've done, whether it's in class or sent out through the board, they often say that they don't actually think about their own safety in real estate, which is fair. We're also not really taught about it. So in all the courses we take, there's never a discussion about safety, about protecting yourself. There's very little information about even teaching your clients to protect themselves by putting away their medication or hiding their booze or hiding their iPads or fancy things when there's showings happening in their home, because you have a realtor bringing somebody in to view your property. You don't know that agent, and lots of agents are really good, but there are lots of bad ones out there too. We read about them every day in the what not to do in the realtor jail reports that we get here in British Columbia. Many of the men that I've spoken to that are in this role, it doesn't even faze them, or they don't think about it. But when we start talking about it, they think, hey, my daughter's in this business, my wife is my partner, they could benefit from this information. And so then the conversation starts and we share and discuss these types of things. And I'm wondering, for those of you out there that are, in this role, is this something that you're potentially thinking about it, or that somebody, in your office has had an incident? And it's something that we can all learn. It doesn't matter what your gender is. We can all learn from this topic, and we can all learn to share with one another so that it doesn't happen to somebody else. One of the most significant stalker incidents in our area happened with a male agent who's now retired, and the client became obsessed with this person and angry, and actually broke into their locked home compound. It had a fence and a gate around it, and actually managed to climb over that and get access to this person's house, inside their house. There wasn't an assault, but it was close. It was very dangerous, and it had gone on in an obsession for months. I don't want to get into very detailed specifics so as to keep those folks that are involved in an anonymous fashion. However, this was a male agent that was very prolific in this area, and it still happened to him. So I do believe that anybody listening to this could benefit from this information. If you have a story or a tip to share, I would love to hear from you. Please reach out, and all the contact information are in the show notes. If you have an experience that could help someone else, maybe I'll even feature it on an upcoming episode, which would be really interesting. Please leave a rating and review so that others like you can find me and learn ways to keep themselves safer. And if you've learned anything in today's episode, recommend or send this show to a friend, or play it at your next office meeting. Be safe, everyone.